guys, welcome back to Interstage Window. Hey Bree, hey Mochi, so glad you guys could join us. Bree got first, that's wonderful. So happy y'all are
Mochi, it's
here.
you.
All right, can y'all hear us? Is everything going good? Landon, say hi.
Hi, I am coming to you from my parents' house. It's a little bit of a different background today, and there's chaos happening, so we'll see how this goes.
If we get little interruptions today, we apologize. But we'll do our best.
Will either be a form of humans or cats, one of the two.
I've got Oreo right here next to me, and I've got the baby cam pointed at him. If anybody wants that on screen, I'll be happy to turn on the baby cam. Just do the little redeem. But today on Interstage Window, we're doing something. We're doing another little different thing, right? So while I get the game going, Landon, if you could kind of explain what it
Yeah.
is that we're doing today.
So part of what we are changing up in our way that we're doing the show is that we're also going to start talking about fandom more and the different fandoms that exist in our culture, society, and especially connected to the media that we have just deep dived. So a few weeks ago, we deep dived Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So today's fandom topic is about something that is crucial part of the Harry Potter series, which is the Hogwarts houses. So we're not so much going to talk about the context of Harry Potter or the books. We are going to mention it a little bit and talk about that, but we're going to also focus on the perceived fandom side of things. So the way that this has affected the world and the community beyond just the media sources.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that is
Yep.
what we're going to be doing today, which is one of my favorite things to talk about ever. So
Proud Ravenclaw here too, Bree. I mean, I'm repping the Ravenclaw, but oh no, Sims crashed. I'm so sorry, guys. Hang on just a second. We'll keep talking while I'm getting Sims back up. My bad. Um, oh well, it happens. It's an old game. It's part of it. Anyway,
I
while
have,
Sims is loading again,
I have so many
yeah.
flaws in my life. It's actually hysterical. I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, oh, a three out of five of my best friends are all Ravenclaws and no Gryffindors. Notice
Oh,
that.
there must be something there. That's interesting. Hang on a second. This intro song's really loud. There we go. Okay. Sorry, that bit's just really super loud, so I wanted to get past it. Yeah, that's interesting. I do feel like in my life it's kind of the same. At least the Harry Potter fans that I know mostly identify with Slytherin or with Ravenclaw, or they're not super involved in the fandom. And the ones that are not super involved in the fandom, of course, identify with Gryffindor because when you read the books, that's the only viable option to identify with. So that's interesting.
But that's what we're gonna talk about today.
Ah!
But before we dive into all of that, Karen, would you like to tell us about your favorite things this week?
I would love to tell you about my favorite thing this week because my favorite thing this week is the Loki show. And oh my god, I am shipping Lokius so hard. I have to tell you guys. Loki and Mobius. I also saw somebody call it Wowkey for the, the ever popular wow of Owen Wilson. I am so into this show, y'all. It's so good. So I've watched some of the other Marvel shows. Like I watched WandaVision. I really enjoyed that. I have not watched The Falcon and Winter Soldier. The previews didn't really super appeal to me, is the truth. But I've heard it's decent. I'll
Yeah.
eventually go back and watch it. But Loki, I am loving. It's so good. It's been so good from go. And something I'm enjoying about it compared to WandaVision is WandaVision, after a couple of episodes, did like a whole 180 on what the show was really even about. And I don't think a huge tone shift is going to happen in Loki. I think it's kind of like what we've got now is what we're going to get. And I'm loving what we have now. I love the concepts of the timekeepers and all of the bureaucracy below that, and I'm loving the relationship between the two main characters, Loki and Mobius. It's really freaking good. If you have not started it yet, please start it. It's amazing.
Are all the episodes out?
No, it's only two
Okay.
episodes. They release weekly.
I
So
have
if you
enough
want to
TV
binge,
show
you
that
have
I
to
have to watch
wait.
first. So I'll
Yeah.
wait until it's all out.
Yeah, if you want to binge, it's not going to happen right now. Um, you have to wait.
but I've heard really good things about it, and of course I've seen like TikTok go crazy over it. So that's TikTok. I've just decided is the new Tumblr in some ways.
Ah,
So that's how I've decided that, like, oh, this is really big with my specific people. Good to know. It'll
mm-hmm,
be a good show to watch.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's really good. I think you'll like it once you get around to it. But yeah, if you want to binge, it's going to be a little while before you can binge because they release episodes weekly.
That's fine. I'll
Yeah.
wait. I have Shadow and Bone to watch first, so gotta get into
True,
that first.
true. So that's my favorite thing this week. Landon, what's your favorite thing this week?
Well, because if I'm at my parents' house, so I am technically on vacation. School stopped. We had our last day of school. I was able to close down the classroom, and then I flew out to Colorado. And because of that, I have done so much reading. In the last week, I have read 4 books, which is so nice to get back to because I didn't consume fiction for so long because when you're in college, all you're doing is reading, and the last thing you want to do in your free time is read. um
Textbooks destroy that, don't they?
yeah, it was I was like, I really do love reading. I just don't have the energy for it, and it's because I was doing so much reading for classwork.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So now that I am reading again, it's so nice, and I picked up a book that has been out for a little while, but I think that everyone should read it if they like contemporary fiction, and it's called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And it is a book about a woman who was born in the 1700s in France and accidentally sells her soul to the devil. And the
Oh.
caveat is to live forever. And the caveat is that nobody can remember her. So if she leaves their eyesight, they forget everything about her. Until one
Oh.
day she walks into a bookstore and there's a boy who remembers her. And it's
Dun dun
a
dun.
really well written, timeless piece. It has some really good twists. The chemistry between characters is great. The characters are well developed. Maybe I'll make Karen read this. No, um, but no, I think that if you are an avid reader, it is a great book to read.
It
So
sounds really cool. I love the
it is.
premise already.
It is really cool, and I think actually, I think it would be a wonderful like mini series, not a whole TV show
Mm.
and not a movie. So maybe somewhere like a 4 episode arc,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
a British mini series, I think would be a really good way because it's very cinematic when you're reading it. It's very cinematic.
Oh, okay, okay. Ah,
So
I love that. That sounds so good. I
read it.
mean, the premise is incredibly intriguing.
It is. It's like, oh, that's, and there isn't a lot of magic or anything like that. It's very much based in the world except for this one thing, and I love books that can build that kind of magic in our world.
Uh-huh.
It's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I love that kind of stuff too. Like, what is it called? Oh, Malcolm got a promotion. He's a minor leaguer, level 2. Yay.
Hey,
Fabulous. Good job,
good job,
Malcolm.
honey. Keep making that money.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that is it is a really good book, and it was my favorite book that I've read this week, and actually a favorite book that I've read in quite a while. Would completely recommend it. Everybody should read it.
Okay. I'm down. It sounds really good.
Yes, so that's my favorite thing. Shall we get into the topic now?
Yes, yes. So I
All
think
right.
if you guys were in our Harry Potter episode a couple of weeks ago, you saw we had a moment that we were going to talk about the the houses, but we like click 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 skipped past it because we were already over on time. So I would like us. Whoa! Oh my God, Lunar!
Ooh,
Lunar, thank you so
Lunar!
much for the biddies. Holy crap!
Holy moly!
That's a lot of bits. That's a lot of bits, Lunar. I love you so much. Thank you.
Holy moly!
Oh my God.
That's
Okay.
one way to get that. That's one way to get that sticker, right?
Oh, how that? Yeah. Holy crap. Yep. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh my
Um,
God, that's amazing.
did y'all like how for the Harry Potter stream I changed it to like a little wand instead of the normal magic circle? Did y'all like that touch? I did that. And I'm glad y'all were able to see it for any notifications that we get. All right. So what were we saying? Oh yeah. So we skipped real quick past it. Click click click. Right. So before we really get into it, I want us to go ahead and talk about some of those things that we wanted to talk about in regards to the Hogwarts houses that we had that we had started that we had mentioned. So that being said, Landon, if you want to kick it off, whatever piece you want to talk about first for Hogwarts houses, go for it.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that first, if you didn't see the media episode, I definitely recommend it. It was really well done. I'm very proud of it. So just shouting out to that, go ahead and go watch that too. But as far as the houses go, I think we should really talk about um probably start with the idea that there is this idea that separating these students gives a form of camaraderie and kinship, and that we're supposed to treat all of these houses like equal and separate. However, they're separate but not equal.
Mm-hmm.
The way
The
that
narrative doesn't treat them
yes,
equally.
the narrative doesn't treat them equally, and the characters within the narrative doesn't treat them equally either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have characters who, even beyond, even though they're older than school age characters, really like favor houses
Mm-hmm.
with no reason behind that, because like it's like going back to your high school and being like, oh, my high school mascot was a wolf, so wolves are awesome and now I'm going to be loyal to anyone who's a wolf ever. It's like
I
that.
mean, I do still love cats, and my high school and college mascots both were cougars. But I like cats before that, so that's just a funny coincidence. It's not because of that.
It was
Katie,
just that.
welcome.
Hey, um I love Hufflepuff for you, Katie. That makes me
I
so
do
happy.
too. Hmm.
Um, headcanon accepted. No, I think there is this idea. It almost reminds me of the Greek system in colleges, where you have that blind
Mm.
loyalty to your Greek sorority or
Hmm.
fraternity, where you're just like,
Hmm.
no one in this house can do any wrong, even after you've grown up out of college and you've stopped going to events. You're like, oh, you're a Beta Kappa Chi? Awesome, you are great in my book. You're a
But you know
Gryffindor.
something
Let
that a
me
lot of a lot of
let me
sororities and
buy you a
fraternities.
broomstick.
Yeah, but you know something that a lot of sororities and fraternities do that really builds that camaraderie that has nothing to do with the Harry Potter books though, is they do a lot of charity work and things like that. So
Oh
that's how
yeah.
that happens. So by the way, we're saying all of this. We recognize that J.K. Rowling was trying to riff off of the house system that she that actually it takes place in a lot of UK schools, and we know she was trying to critique it. So like we know that the point was not to say houses are good. So just to make that clear, we know. But what we're talking about is not intent; it's the reality of what is in the books.
Yeah, and it but even then it's like, I don't know if it was, I didn't see enough proof in the writing to see that it was a riff off of it,
Mhm. Mhm.
or if it was inspired by it and taken to the
Mhm.
next extreme. Like, I don't think it was a commentary. There was not enough in the novel that showed me it was a commentary on why this is corrupt, silly, stupid, whatever thing she was trying to comment on, or if this was just, hey, this thing happens in UK schools, so it makes sense that it would happen in Harry Potter.
Yeah,
Let
you
me
can't
adapt
tell.
it so it
You
fits into
can't
that
tell
world.
reading the books. You can't tell
Yeah.
reading the books.
So she can say whatever she wants, and we'll talk about that later as well. But in the books, there is no proof that this is a riffing off of anything.
Mhm.
It is that you are separated as students and then you never come together with your other students. Like, there is no, in any of the books, inner house unity
Nope.
happening. Or not inner
Nope.
house, the houses combining, like, other than
Yeah.
going to classes. But even then, the classes are given the examples we see of classes interacting, specifically, Snape in potions class, is that there is a competitiveness between Gryffindor and Slytherin, and it is dependent on the teachers who are all biased for their favorite
Mm-hmm.
houses. There isn't
Mm-hmm.
a single unbiased teacher. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, there is no way for Hufflepuffs and Slytherins to be friends, or for
Nope.
Gryffindors and Ravenclaws to be friends, or anything, because there's no engaging. You're like in a separate sub school within the school.
Yep. There's literally only two examples in the whole books where you can argue that any of this happens. The first example being dating. If a student thinks another student's hot that's in another house, they will date them, right? So there is, interhouse dating, right? Um, but the only other example is Luna Lovegood, and the only reason like that she acts how she acts and she bonds with the Gryffindors the way she bonds with the Gryffindors is because she feels ostracized by her own house. Like she
Yeah.
expresses that people don't like her, and the only reason she bonds with the Gryffindors is because her and Harry have a nice first meeting. That's literally it.
And we'll talk.
And we get
Yeah.
no other examples, and I just don't think that's enough. It
I-
proves that the houses really are separate.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about Luna when we get to her, because she's such an interesting character, like as a deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the other important thing about Luna is that she is, again, these relationships that are being built are another form of trauma bonding.
Yep.
uh Golden Trio are trauma bonded, Neville is trauma bonded in there, and then Luna becomes trauma bonded. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is again that abused girl joins the abused misfits.
Mm-hmm.
So it is this interesting, it's the same character repeated, even though
Yep.
has different characteristics. It's the same sort of
It's the same
thing.
trope. It's the same trope.
Yeah,
Is
it's the same
basically
trope.
what we're saying. Like we know
um
Luna's not the same character, but she's a repeated trope.
exactly. So I think that Katie, you make a great point that everyone likes to belong and connect. And that's something that we will talk about why it became like a grass fire within the fandom, these Harry Potter houses. But in the context of the books, it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it really is treated unfairly.
Mm-hmm.
And then especially when it comes to defining the points of the houses. So the whole house system, if we dissect it, we go from that there is a magical sorting hat that has 4 established houses, and your traits, depending on who you are going to put you in the house with like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Because it
break
literally
down
looks
houses.
inside your head. It looks inside your head, so it's looking at your memories, your experiences, your values, all of those things that make up you, and looking at that and deciding how to sort you.
But even then, we as the reader don't know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are examples where it's like, oh, it sat on Neville's head for a full minute. And then with Draco Malfoy, it barely even touched his head. So how
Mm-hmm.
deep can it really go into those thoughts and memories and stuff like that? So we have actually no source of idea what the hat is discovering or looking at. We only know as a narrative, reading the media, that it touches your head and knows exactly what values you find the most important, or that
Mm-hmm.
you connect to the most.
Mm-hmm.
And those values are brave, strong, and willing to fight, aka the good guys.
Yep.
Smart, smart and book smart, not street smarts, book smart,
Mm-hmm.
creative, although that isn't highlighted for several novels.
Yeah.
And witty, is that the third?
I think so.
Ravenclaw?
Yeah, kind
Which,
of.
by the way, are all synonyms of each other, but that's fine. and then you have cunning, ambitious, and cunning and ambitious, and then you have everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally how it's described.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird split system where it's like, okay, children, you are being labeled, and then that is who you're going to be forever.
Yeah. Yeah, you really are. 'Cause okay. So here's the thing. Here's the thing with these houses. Because when you get into a house, you interact almost solely with the students in that house. Whatever the values are of that house, whatever collectively those students are, that's how you're going to be, whether you want to or not, because that is your only peers that you're having deeper interactions with, right? Like, even though they have classes with other houses, still, like, for example, in potions, they have like potions lab partners, right? They don't pick a lab partner in another house. They could, but they never do, right? They're always partnering with other kids inside their own house, even though they've got classes with kids from other houses, right? Like that just never happens. Even though when you as a fandom, we can make the logical conclusion that like, oh, well that probably happens. I'm sure that it happens, but in the books, the truth is it never does. So we don't really know that.
It's it's this really it's a system that makes sense to the point of a children's book, but it's not I mean, it's another gaping in the hole as far as that editors were obviously not expecting this to be as big as it was.
Yep.
Because no one would have sat there and been like, we probably shouldn't split children into four houses.
Or at least if we're going to, like, this is another thing. If we're going to do this, where's the commentary on it?
Yes.
And there is commentary on it in the later books. Like, I don't want to pretend like that doesn't exist, but it's incredibly shallow, which we'll get into in the next section about what the commentary that does exist in the books actually means and is actually saying and the broader implications of it.
Yeah. And I just, it's incredibly shallow, and then it also continuously contradicts itself.
Yes.
I think is an important thing to bring up too.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it gets much deeper. We see how the house system affects the entirety of the wizarding world for the rest of the novels when we have more insight into what's happening in the wizarding world. But here at school, like, yeah. So you split these kids into four houses, and then it is used as a competition of good behavior. Like, the purpose of splitting these kids up is not just these are going to be your roommates, but it's also we are then going to expect you to behave in a way that's going to get you points.
Yep.
But the point system is never defined. There aren't clear-cut rules, at least explained to the readers, about how to get points, because seemingly points are given and taken away depending on the professor's mood. Snape hates Harry, so he literally just takes points away from Harry, Ron, and Hermione the entire novel.
Right. And then at the end, Dumbledore feels like what, Harry, Ron, and Hermione did was very heroic, so Gryffindor gets a bunch of points, right?
And
even
I
though
mean, that's
that
the point,
shouldn't
that
have
the whole
happened.
system is rigged.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's super unfair. It's super unfair to the other kids that that something that these kids did suddenly makes Gryffindor win at the end, when it's like, what about everything else that happened during the whole year? Like, why does like doing something amazing at the very end mean that you get to win? Like, that's
That
pretty wrong.
is, by the way, both illegal and against school rules.
Yeah.
Which is what Dumbledore says in his speech, is that, like, yeah, you broke the rules, but here's 100 points. Like,
yeah. And it's like, what?
and then being like, oh, and then standing up to your friends is worth 5 points. Like, there is no clear-cut rule. And then it's also this idea that, like, in the novel, it says that, like, Slytherin won the last 7 years or something like that for the House Cup. Like, they haven't been beatable in 7 years. And then all of a sudden, they weren't going to be beaten that year because they were listening to the rules and, quote unquote, being the good kids because they were following the rules that was hypothetically getting them points, even though they're painted as the antagonists, which again makes no sense. But then at the end, in the last 5 minutes, we lose the system that has been set in place to make up for a narrative win, but that goes against the entire world that we have been told to try to trust.
Yep.
Which is like, just proves that the house system is broken.
It's super broken. It's super broken. It doesn't make sense. It's the same thing that I was saying before when we were talking about the first book, that I really believe that J.K. Rowling does not think of things in a systemic way or understand them in a systemic way. She really does think that the world is good people and bad people, and you have to beat the bad people. Like, I think she really thinks that. And I know a lot of children's media pushes that, but there's a difference between children's media pushing that because it's children's media and it's easier for kids to understand, versus children's media pushing that where it's not like where it's obvious that the author knows it's not as simple as that. There's a difference, right? There's a difference.
Yes,
And Harry Potter definitely doesn't ever show anything that knows the adult who should know better that's writing these books understands this.
Well, I think what this also did, I think this was another example of, I think that this shows the hand of children's literature in one way, but it also shows that J.K. Rowling isn't necessarily good at raising stakes, because the
Mm-hmm.
house points are supposed to add tension and raise stakes. This is the only book that house points matter.
Yep.
And we haven't dissected it further yet. We haven't read the books yet further, but from my memory, house points, like even though the house trophy is an important part of every year and ending every year, the idea of like Harry, Ron, and Hermione being so caught up on how many
Oh,
points Gryffindor has
we have
doesn't
we have a
really
chance
matter.
card. Yeah, we have a chance card, so let's pause real quick. Okay, the
Yes.
assistant coach has asked Malcolm to help move an upright piano for one of the more senior players on the team. Malcolm is a bit worried about overstraining himself, but the move might also be a way to get in good with the manager and some of the players. He could agree or make up an excuse. So, Landon, should he move the piano or make an excuse? You gotta decide quick or it's gonna disappear.
Oh, make up an excuse.
Okay. Malcolm tells the assistant coach that he's been experiencing back spasms, that he's so focused on the upcoming game with the Red City Hammers that he needs to get some extra therapy and some extra practice sessions before the game. The coach agrees with his level-headedness and decides to hire professional movers to move the piano. Malcolm earns 2 logic skill points for his quick thinking. Woo! Good job.
Smart husband.
Okay. All right. Okay, back to houses. Keep going.
No, and I think it's just this idea of that it stops being important. It's this thing that is crucial to the narrative of this story, and then it has obvious gaps in the logic, and it is never picked up again.
Yep.
Which is fine. It's a book series. It was children's literature. It didn't have good authorship, but it is fascinating that it is this idea of this like camaraderie and point system, and that's the reason that the houses exist. And in the fandom, the most popular and most talked about thing is the house system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though it's not the discussion of the house system, people have on dating profiles, on Twitter bios, on Instagram, tattoos, all of these things, what house is representative of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it is highly talked about and considered, but it is a completely broken system that stops mattering after the first book.
Yep. And and it's fine in the narrative that it stops mattering, but it's interesting that how little it matters in the book and how underdeveloped it is in the book compared to how developed it is in the fandom, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. If you look at the Harry Potter fandom, you would think that the houses are this crucial part of the book, and they're really not. I mean, they're really just an easy way to sort the characters so that it's easy for you to remember the ridiculous number of side characters that are in this book, right? That's really what it is. But you think, looking at the fandom, that wasn't the case. Oh, Malcolm got promoted again. Wonderful. He's doing great.
Yeah, he's doing so good. A good husband. I think that brings us to talking about, and we've hinted about it a little bit, but talking about the biggest problem that comes with the Hogwarts houses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Slytherin problem.
Yes. So I think it's impossible to have this conversation without doing a deep dive into Slytherin and what Slytherin means. So we're going to talk about Slytherin a lot, and that's why you can see we're Slytherin colors today. That's why we've got the Slytherin.
About us Slytherin.
Yeah, well.
Always all about us.
I mean, whatever. Anyways, so it's impossible to talk about the houses without talking about Slytherin. So this is the problem. In the books, Slytherin is the evil house. Like, the Sorting Hat can say what it wants about it being the house of ambitious wizards or whatever. In the narrative, there are no good Slytherins. They are literally all bigots and bullies. Find me an example of a Slytherin that's never been bigoted, that's never been a bully. You can't find one, I promise. It doesn't exist.
Well, there is one. Technically, this is the argument, right?
Yeah.
That Slughorn.
He's not. He's not. He is. He does have a bigoted comment in the books. It's like at the
Does he?
beginning of. Yeah, it's like in at the beginning of the book that he's in. I can't remember which one it is, but I'm pretty sure he has a. I'm pretty sure he has a bigoted comment. I don't think that he goes all the books without any comments at all.
I thought no, because I thought Harry thought he was making a bigoted comment, but then he explained that he wasn't because maybe that in itself is like
Yeah,
inherently.
see, there you go. You're remembering the scene.
Now that
You're
I'm saying
remembering the scene
that.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, there was he made a comment about like and she was a muggle born. And Harry's like, oh God. And he's like, no, I mean like my favorites were muggle borns. They're fantastic.
My favorites. I also have a black friend. I'm sorry, that's what it sounds like. You
No,
can say
it's the same.
Slughorn wasn't a bigot, but he was. He just wasn't he wasn't completely overt in it, so maybe it's harder to see it. But
Well, and
he was.
he's also like, and I'm not trying to argue that he is a good Slytherin because at the same
Yeah.
time, too, he's not portrayed well. He's portrayed as this mousy thing that's trying to find success through other people. He's a kingmaker, right? That's the character trope that he is. But it's the narrative of how it's explained is so incredibly like Harry just finds him disgusting because of that.
Yeah.
That he's using other people's fame, and it's like, well, some people do that. It doesn't make them inherently bad.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But I mean, that is Harry's character trait, though, is that he doesn't think very deeply about other people. So
he's not. Yeah, he's Harry.
So if we think about this, there is one character that some fans will argue for, right? Slughorn, and he's the only example, and he's not even that perfect. There is no just regular old nice guy Slytherin. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the books.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lunar, for upgrading your subscription to tier 2. Ah! Oh, you're the best. Okay.
She's doing so much for us.
It's too much. I'm getting overwhelmed. I can't talk. Okay. Let me compose.
No,
Okay.
and also like, and not only that, it's that also we then learn to find out that characters that aren't even given houses in the media, in the books, are then put in Slytherin because of their morality. Yeah. Dolores Umbridge being number one of this. And we'll talk about this later too, is how the characters within Harry Potter are not developed enough for us to actually have sense of what houses they are. Fandom does that for us. But because it's just like so like wrench in the gut that the other evil character that is not ever given a house is given a house post-worth, even though there's no traits to necessarily back that up.
Yep.
So it's not even named, it's not even like said in the media, but all evil characters are in Slytherin.
Yep, pretty much.
And this is the hard one. The only evil or bad antagonist that's not even an antagonist that isn't in Slytherin is Lockhart. And to be completely honest, I would argue that he is the most likely to be in Slytherin.
Yeah, like he's all about ambition. That's his only character trait, and yet he's not in Slytherin. It's very strange. I mean, there are examples of evil characters that are in other houses, but again, like a good example of that is Peter Pettigrew. But like, it doesn't make any sense why he's in Gryffindor. It doesn't make any sense. He's literally just like he's the Neville of that generation, and therefore he's in Gryffindor. But like, why? He doesn't have any Gryffindor traits.
That Neville is in Gryffindor either.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Well, no, that's not true. It does make sense if Neville is in Gryffindor. If it turns out that the sorting system has literally nothing to do with the actual person and has to do with their wants and wishes, which we get a hint of with Harry.
Yes.
Because then that explains why all 7 Weasley children are in Gryffindor. Statistically, makes zero fucking sense. Right. Especially because they're all supposed to be vastly different in personality.
And they are like Fred and George are totally different than the rest of the Weasleys, and I would even argue make way more sense being either Slytherins or Hufflepuffs, because their
Well,
main traits are being ambitious, like they go open that store at the end,
yep.
right? And being jokesters and welcoming to everybody, right? And those are their main traits. That's a Slytherin trait and a Hufflepuff trait. I'm
Or
sorry.
even Slytherin, how creative they are, or not Slytherin, sorry, Ravenclaw, how creative they are, how much studying they do
Sure.
have to do just because they're not the traditional book smart that we relate to Ravenclaw. I would argue that those characters, these traits that we are presented as, have every other trait but Gryffindor
They
traits.
kind of do. Right? So like when we take these elements of the book, so this is how fandom gets into the idea of like your house isn't necessarily your personality trait. Your house is really more about your values, right? Because when you actually look at what's happening in the books, it's just not, it's not ever fully explained and it's not ever clear. So you kind of can extrapolate from that what the Sorting Hat is really doing is it's looking to see like, what do you really want? What are your values? What other kids are you going to get along with most? Like, that's what it's really looking at, you know. And so I think that's why in fandom a lot of times what we will say is things like, you know, your house is what your values were when you were 11 years old. Because if you do a deep reading of the books and you really think about it, that's the only thing that makes any sense.
And which also, by the way, is the value of your parents, because there are very few 11-year-olds that I know that do not value the things that they weren't taught to value.
Right,
They
right.
don't
Which
have
is how
the
you end up with all the bigots in Slytherin.
and all the Weasleys in Gryffindor.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, no. So it's a convoluted thing. But yes, Slytherin is full of bigots, full of bad guys, of bullies. We've talked about, yeah, that they're,
Oh my
and that
gosh.
like what?
Kayla Shadow. Hi, welcome raiders.
Hi.
Thank you so much for raiding. Kayla, welcome to the stream. Do I know you? Tell me who you are. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
talking about Harry Potter houses and their effect on fandom. So now we're just kind of criticizing the way Harry Potter houses work because it's
Yeah, and we're kind of like equal parts dunking on and praising Slytherin right at this moment. So if you're a Slytherin, come join us. That's what we're here for right this second.
well.
Yeah. So like another good example of that is like, okay, there's no Slytherins in Dumbledore's army. Makes no sense if ambition is their main trait. Like, why would there not be Slytherins that would be ambitious about changing the system?
Yeah.
Why?
Um,
It makes no sense.
well, and then like there's also in the actual book, and I know you have a comment on this, not a single Slytherin fights against you know who.
Yes.
In the
Okay.
book, not a single
Yes,
Slytherin.
I have a comment on this. Okay. So a bunch of fans will tell you, oh, Slughorn brought some Slytherins back to fight in the Battle of Hogwarts. But when you read the books, that literally doesn't happen. It's not in there. So it's like, why does everyone think this? Why does everyone who hasn't read the books since they were a kid think this? Well, the reason why is because J.K. Rowling was on a podcast, which Landon, if you could paste the link of the transcript from the podcast, because I went and found this before stream to prove it, because I think a lot of people are going to tell me I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. It's not in the books. I promise you. Go find it. She says it here in the transcript from this podcast from linkycauldron.org, right? And it's just, it's a comment that she makes. If you click that link, Landon just put in the chat, and you control F for the word fight, you will find it. But this scene that she describes, this moment she describes, doesn't happen. It's not in the books, okay? And so like this idea that there are some good Slytherins is literally a fandom creation. It's a fandom creation that we started, that J.K. Rowling thought about later or got from us. I don't know. I'm not in her brain. I don't know where, if she got it from us or if she realized later this was silly. But like, this was a fandom creation that J.K. Rowling latched onto and decided was true. It was never true in the books. It didn't happen. Okay, it
Here,
didn't happen.
so here's my question, because this kind of passion and topic is going to continue to come up throughout the entirety of this stream and also series
Yeah.
of J.K. Rowling editorializing canon and
Yep.
coming back and saying things that there's no proof of in the book. I feel that we need to either take a shot or have a song during these times.
Lunar, what a beautiful use of the sipping tea emoji that you just unlocked. I love that right now. There's like little claps for Lunar, little claps for Lunar. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to do something. You know, every time rewatches, people that watch the VODs, okay, people that watch the VODs, drinking game. Every time we dunk on J.K. Rowling for editorializing fandom, do a shot. You'll be freaking wasted.
She does it. Like she editorializes it, and this is an example of doing it. She
Yep.
realized how incredibly like the fandom's out there and was like, well, Slytherins are good too. And she's like, well, fuck, I never wrote that. So might as well say it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it really is this like terror. It's just so not good. And it's an example, and we will talk about it time and time again, because that is completely honestly, and we'll talk about the rise and fall of J.K. Rowling within the fandom, but that is the final nails on the coffin, is when she started editorializing and dismissing canon.
Yep. Like my favorite joke, and I totally stole this, but I still say it all the time when I'm talking about Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling needs to Potter less. Like she just needs to Potter less. We've never wanted Potter more. And she needs to stop, please.
To be honest, don't care what she fucking has to say.
I
I
don't.
read the books. Tumblr did it better. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So no, I think that we need to come up with like a drinking. Yeah, that's a drinking game for anyone watching the VODs. If you want to get really drunk, let's every time we yell at J.K. Rowling for editorializing canon in any of these episodes,
Yeah, do a shot.
do a shot. But yes,
Because it's gonna
no.
keep happening.
Again, this Slytherin problem that there is an entirety house dedicated to being evil in the school
Mm-hmm.
is like so messed up, because like taking, and I know this is taking a step farther, but what is it telling those kids to be like, by the way, you're in the evil house?
Yeah,
uh
like you're the house you're the house Voldemort came from, and everybody thinks that people from this house are evil, and most of your friends are bigots, and you know, I mean, you get it, right? Like you get it. This is awful, an awful thing to say to a kid.
yep. And on top of that, then why, as a teacher, who, by the way, is very against Slytherin House because you just awarded 255 points to Gryffindor for doing fuck all and breaking the rules,
Yeah,
why
for
do you
doing something that the police should have handled.
why do you have this house still established, Dumbledore? Why is Slytherin House still there? If they're nothing but evil people, why are you allowing them to exist and then be raised to believe that they're evil people? Because I guarantee you that kids that think that they're going to be raised evil will come out evil.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It doesn't make any sense, and that's the Slytherin problem.
Hmm.
Again, understanding that this is children's literature, especially in this first book, like that there is the because of children's literature there is this idea of black and white, but I understand that it's very, very difficult to read as like people who don't have fandom knowledge to understand why there would be any good qualities in Slytherin, because there literally isn't.
Hmm.
And also, sorry, to go back to the Dumbledore thing, Dumbledore also mentions ambition being one of the worst traits a human or a wizard could have.
Yeah.
And then literally the tagline of one of the houses is ambition.
Hmm.
Like
It's freaking
how
crazy.
that connection is so important in the idea of this is truly an evil house. These are
Oh.
truly evil people.
Katie has a funny comment because if you don't have an easy scapegoat, you have to self reflect instead of divert. Yes, actually. And that's why certain political movements are built on having an underclass or a scapegoat.
Yes,
Because then they don't have to think about it.
they don't. Um, so yeah, so that is how Slytherin House is talked about in the books.
Yep.
Let's talk about how it is in fandom, because
Oh,
I think
totally
that is
different.
an important difference, and I think that is the like purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Slytherin House in fandom is still about ambition, but ambition looks multiple different ways. My favorite person that the fandom has decided is in Slytherin House is Barack Obama. Like I'm like, yeah, incredibly ambitious man, very charming, very cunning, very charismatic, great guy. I would assume from everything I've read about him.
Well,
Would
what I
love.
can say, I don't know if I would assume he's a great guy. I would assume he's one of the greatest orators of our time. Wonderful speaker. And why wouldn't somebody with all of the traits of a Slytherin be an excellent speaker? Why wouldn't they? It makes perfect sense.
They have the attention loving of a Gryffindor and the charismatic, the charisma and smarts of a Ravenclaw. They are the public speakers of the world.
Yeah.
I truly believe anybody who has had to crawl their way up a ladder inherits some Slytherin like ideals. That
Mm-hmm.
ambition is an incredibly key. I mean, it is one of 3 words that describe Slytherin. It is an incredibly important part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you have a dream, like people who have far off dreams and are willing to put in the work and willing to make their way to do it, and I'm not talking like putting in the work by like studying, I'm talking about like making friends, getting to know people, all of that kind of stuff. That is the kind of Slytherin ambition that the fandom has decided is what Slytherin is representative of.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Because the thing is, it's because here's the thing. Like when the fandom looks at these houses, they're most of the time when you're getting into Harry Potter, you're younger, right? Like you're a teenager, you're a young adult. You're similar age to the characters, right? So, of course, at that age, you're still finding yourself, you're still trying to figure out like how you fit in. And it's very easy then to look at these houses and be like, well, gosh, if I was part of the wizarding world, what house would I be in? So, it's a very natural inclination that we're doing. So, and nobody wants to think of themselves as being part of the evil house. So we kind of extrapolate all of these other things and decide like, okay, well, Slytherin house, it's really more about ambition. And I said it in the previous Harry Potter episode that we did on Sorcerer's Stone that like J.K. Rowling doesn't understand ambition. She thinks of it as something is bad. I believe that, and I argue in that video why I believe that she thinks that. Um, and so with that, but the thing is like if being ambitious produces evil results, it's not the ambitious person that's the problem. It's your system that's encouraging ambitious people to behave in this way, right? Like that's the problem. So once again, J.K. Rowling does not think about things systemically because if she did, and if Dumbledore is supposedly the best headmaster Hogwarts has ever had, you know what Dumbledore would do? He would say, Slytherin House doesn't exist anymore. We are totally rebranding this house. We're giving it different traits. We're totally reorganizing how this works. And this new system either is not going to be houses or it's not going to include a house of ambition that somehow ends up with all the bigots in it, right? Like he would abolish it if he was that smart. But J.K. Rowling's not that smart, so she can't make Dumbledore do that.
and again,
Ah,
and again, this is children's, like at this point in time when the systems were created, it was children's lit, so it didn't
yeah.
have to be that deep.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that throughout the entire book, because it never gets developed more or doesn't get developed with the depth that it deserves as the rest of the world gets developed, it remains that shallow.
Yeah. And it
It
doesn't have to,
there
because a lot of other parts of the book grow up and deepen and get way more complex, but not this.
Yeah, you do see in some areas where her world building of systems makes sense. The Ministry of Magic, the laws and rules and regulation of magic, the way magic interacts in the world. Like these are all things that will continue to deepen and grow that we know J.K. Rowling is capable of that level of world building.
Mm-hmm.
But because the house system stops becoming important after this, because the stakes of other things continue to grow higher, and this stakes are too low, it never becomes developed.
Mm-hmm.
It never becomes developed, so it continues to be, oh, they're Slytherin, they're evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, you would think that as the rest of the books in the world develops, that would be developed as well. And maybe it doesn't happen in the Sorcerer's Stone. Maybe that's a discussion that happens in Order of the Phoenix, where it's almost hinted at, where the world, like Sirius's famous line of, the world isn't split up into good people and Death Eaters.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like this idea that he says that line and then every single Death Eater comes from Slytherin. Like,
Yeah. It's like, but actually it kind of is. It kind of is
depending
in
on
these
where
books.
your mouth is. Like, that's a great quote. And maybe that for Harry would like awaken something, that he'd realize that not all Slytherins are evil, or that J.K. Rowling could take that opportunity and then start writing characters where Slytherins aren't evil. But that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's like tell versus show. We get told this, but we're never shown. Like where is it? Where does that happen? It doesn't.
It doesn't. Look at
Nope.
them. They're so cute, by the way. I'm just walking and swinging back and forth.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I'm just kind of letting them do their thing. I think Tormund's about to grow up.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's about
So
to
so
happen.
Slytherin is definitely this like public speaker, politician, easy talker, ambitious sort of vibe that isn't bad and isn't isn't inherently bad and isn't inherently good, because I think that that's the other thing that fandom did, is that they tried really hard to balance it out, that they didn't want bad and good to be so black and white.
Mhm.
So
And I do
that's
think that that's a huge thing in transformative works is finding, what in the source material is not as good as it could be, and making it better, right? So this is a common theme that you see in fandom and transformative work, because of course the work of thousands or tens of thousands of people when it comes to Harry Potter is always going to be more intelligent and more satisfying than the work of one person and a team of editors. Duh. That duh. Just the brain power of all of those people. So you see this element of the books that's like, oh, this is kind of flawed, it could be better, and fandom like totally latches onto it and makes it that thing that it could have been.
Do we want to talk about how the other houses are portrayed in the books, at least from the
Oh
Sorcerer's
yeah,
Stone?
yeah.
So
Yeah, so I
let's
mentioned this a little bit as the resident Ravenclaw. I just want to speak on this. So I mentioned this a little bit, that that the other houses really just exist as characters to be dated, and that's really true in the books. When you think about the other Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs, Luna is the only example that I think doesn't quite fit this, but they're just hotties. Like that's it. Cho Chang, somebody for Harry to date. Um, Cedric Diggory,
for
someone
Harry
for
to
the
date.
girls to drool over. Go ahead,
Wait, what?
Landon. Cedric Diggory, somebody for the girls to drool over,
I
right?
know. I was making a bisexual Harry joke. It's fine.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, I was just saying Cedric Diggory, a person for Harry to date.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Oh, I should have said that. Oh well. Anyways, we'll talk about bisexual Harry as he grows up. That is a thought
in
that we
the
have.
fourth book, we'll talk about bisexual
Mhm.
Harry because of
Mhm.
Cedric Diggory.
Mhm. Yep. And
um,
and Sirius Black to a lesser extent, but yes, we'll talk
so
about
much
that.
daddy issues in Sirius Black. It's fine.
Oh boy.
Um,
Get ready, y'all.
it's so fun. That's the title of that book. It's the title of that episode, by the way, is the daddy issues of Sirius Black. Uh,
Ah!
but no, I agree that there aren't any examples of of Gryffindor or not Gryffindor, of Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff outside of one, Luna Lovegood, and who also is supposed to become a love interest. I think originally it happened in the movie, didn't happen in the book, but was originally also supposed to be a love interest for Neville.
Yep, she was.
I think that
In
J.K.
my
Rowling
heart, she still is. In my heart, she still is. She never married whatever his name Scamander is. That didn't happen.
yeah, so
Pottermore can say what it wants.
so even then she still is a love interest of a character, like
Hmm.
that was the original purpose of her. So you have like, yeah, there isn't representation, and even if you look at the adults in Harry's life through the books, we might come across someone else um who isn't, as we read the books, and maybe we'll talk about it through that. But the only one that comes to mind as far as like professors is um Gilderoy Lockhart, who's apparently a Ravenclaw, and I've already expressed that's stupid.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why he's Ravenclaw.
He's not
I
very
don't get
creative,
it.
and he's not very clever, or he's not very book smart, and he's not really like long-term thinking type A. It
No.
doesn't make any sense why he's a Ravenclaw in
Yeah,
my
he
head.
he has he has none of the other Ravenclaw traits, which again, that's why the way that fandom fixes it is it's not about your actual traits or what you're good at, it's about what you value, right?
And even then, I don't think he values it because he doesn't value Hermione, who is
No.
book smart.
Maybe at
Like,
11 years old he did, who knows. But yeah, it doesn't seem like he does it?
no, it doesn't. So, and as far as I can think of, I don't think that there is any other characters that really are developed of any sort of development
Mhm.
that belong to other houses.
Not really. Not
Um,
really.
Tonks is a Hufflepuff. That's the only other one that comes to mind.
Yeah,
Tonks,
Tonks doesn't get a lot of development either, except for through her being Remus's new squeeze.
and I was going to say, and that is the thing with, and we will continue to talk about this as well through this series. But Tonks is an example of a character that I like to call blank slates. And that is that there are 3 traits you can name about Tonks, and the fandom then does the work to project a personality onto her.
Yep. Yeah, and that's
She's
exactly what Mochi's talking about right now. But yeah, that rebellious chill vibe, like it's just a tiny snippet in the book, right? And
yeah,
then we develop it.
she's clumsy, and she loves Remus Lupin. Those are literally her 3 traits that are
Mhm.
really, really expanded upon in the book or developed in any sort of way. Everything else is a projection of how fandom wanted to see her.
Yep.
Someone that she is someone that, because there's an unrelatable main character cast. So there's only one girl, which means that all the teenage girls that didn't represent with Hermione couldn't feel like they were a part of the Harry Potter series. And then Ron and Harry are very distinctive personalities that any other person who didn't feel like they were belonging to those personalities couldn't relate to the Harry Potter series. So
Mhm.
J.K. Rowling has made a cast full of characters who you could project yourself onto. Whether that was the intention or not, who knows? But that is what has happened. And that is why fandom started like a wildfire for all of these characters.
Mhm. There's so many examples of just wonderful like side characters that don't have a lot of development in Harry Potter that you can just add so much to. By the way, it's about to be baby Tormund's birthday, so he's gonna grow up. I think the game keeps trying to do it and then not do it. But I hope that he'll go ahead and grow up because then we continue the trend of important life moments happening in our underwear. It's not happening though. I don't think it's gonna happen. It almost did. Yep.
She's
Okay.
juggling. Okay.
Yep.
We love Landon so much.
We
Um,
do. But
no, I think
yeah, and I mean, talking about how does Tonks feel about gender because she can shapeshift, that's a wonderfully valid question that I think a more thoughtful author probably would have put some hints into the book for that, but they don't exist in
but
Harry
let's
Potter.
I want to, just because I think that this is a bigger conversation, but I do want to like define what the houses are for fandom perspective.
Yeah.
So in Harry Potter, Ravenclaw is supposed to be clever, creative, and witty.
Mhm.
Um, and they're the book smart people. Is
Mhm.
how until Luna Lovegood they're book smart, and then after Luna Lovegood they're also acceptable as wise and creative.
Mhm.
Um, but as fandom, again, it is that idea of being able to like be organized, be able to be type A, be able to like push things forward. Not just be book smart, but also be smart in a multitude of ways, be creative. What other things did you find in the Ravenclaw fandom that you connected with maybe?
So I think that the Ravenclaw fandom, a lot of it is extrapolated from Luna Lovegood, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just necessarily the book smarts, although that is a huge part of it. Another huge part of the Ravenclaw fandom is like anybody that doesn't feel like they fit in, that they felt like they were kind of the weirdos. So I know a lot of like theater kids identify with Ravenclaw. A lot of band kids identify with Ravenclaw. A lot of kids that were super into anime identify with Ravenclaw. So when I was coming along, reading Harry Potter, along with similar ages that the characters in the books were, and my friends were all reading Harry Potter and stuff like that too. The ones of us that identified with Ravenclaw were basically the ones of us that weren't very afraid of our nerd side, and then my friends that were a little bit more either ambivalent or disliking their nerd side, because all my friends were nerds, like, let's be real. I didn't have many non-nerd friends, but the ones that were either ambivalent or not so happy with their nerd side tended to more identify with either Slytherin or Hufflepuff, right? And then the ones of us that were like not so embarrassed about it tended to identify with Ravenclaw. That was my experience, with the Harry Potter fandom online, as well as the Harry Potter fandom and how it affected me and my friends. That was really what Ravenclaw was. It's a bunch of nerds. It's a bunch of nerds.
Well, I agree with that. And I think that also the landscape of like what defines a nerd has changed in the last 15
Oh,
years.
yeah.
And so as fandom has taken that, it has changed with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would agree, it is that like nerdy fraction, that geeky faction of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It does feel like high school stereotypes, Katie. It so then we have Hufflepuff. Hufflepuff, who in the book are described as the others. Kind, loyal, hardworking are the words described with them, but also like Gryffindor is supposed to be loyal. So like what? And then hardworking. Everyone is supposed to be hardworking. So it really is the leftovers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are described in the book. I know with a lot of my Hufflepuff friends, and there's like, they're meek and quiet, and they're supporting side characters. I know from my Hufflepuff friends that this is not it. Like, this is not how fandom saw them. They're the hardworking people who are like, I always liked to see it in fandom where it was like, oh, the Gryffindors are the one being outspoken, and the Hufflepuffs are like, okay, but how are we actually going to do this? Like, saying that you want this change, but then how do we change it? Okay, we can do this, and then like build the home. So the Gryffindor is like, we're gonna build a house, and the Hufflepuffs are being like, I guess we're building a house. Let's figure out how to do that.
Yep. No, I think that's accurate as far as the way that the fandom has taken those and changed them over time.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would agree with all those.
And then we have the big one, which is Gryffindor.
Yes.
And this is the most proof that we have the most proof in in the media for, and how fandom has changed that. So in the media, we have Gryffindors are the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're brave. They commit murder. No, even though they did. They're like dedicated. They're strong-willed, not just strong in body. Although,
what, Oliver Wood? I don't. Huh?
Oh my God, never loved a guy who only had one scene in 3 books more, but Oliver Wood, my man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think, and then there's like, I don't know. It's hard, I think, because Gryffindor is told that we are the good guys, but then we see this vast variety of people inside of Gryffindor, and none of them necessarily have any connecting traits. Right?
Yeah.
You have Neville, who is supposedly Gryffindor, and doesn't connect to like Fred and George. Like, those 2 characters are very different and see the world very differently and act very different. But they're supposed to be the same. They're supposed to fit under this umbrella of bravery and courage and God knows what else.
Yeah, we don't really know, right? We don't really know.
So, how did fandom change this? Fandom changed this by making Gryffindors the frat boys that they are.
The jocks.
No.
They're doing it here for sports.
Yeah. I think Gryffindor, if you're a Gryffindor and you're watching this, I love you. That took a lot to say for me to say it, but I do love you. But I think because we only had access to Gryffindor within the fandom kind of has become a joke.
Yeah, nobody wants to be Gryffindor. Not in the fandom. It's like, what? Why would you want that?
Yeah, I think it's like, why would you want that? But it's also like it's so generic.
Kind of, yeah.
That like, well, like my friend for the longest time was like, I'm a Gryffindor, and I'm like, honey, you deserve so much more than that.
Oh no.
Was that to me?
Yeah, that was to your
Oh,
poor friend.
oh yeah, no, she's seen the error of her ways. She's really a Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that makes sense. Like I said, the only people that I know that identify with Gryffindor are not part of the fandom. They
but
simply
she's
just enjoyed the books and movies.
Yeah, but she was very much like, well, I'm really into social justice and protesting and systemic change. She's a social worker,
Mm.
helping other people. And I sit there and I go, love, you can do all of that from all the other houses.
Yeah, that's not unique to
just
Gryffindor.
because just because we're told that Gryffindors are the only people who would protest doesn't that's not true.
Yeah, it
Right?
doesn't really make sense, right?
That's not true at all. um and and it was like this, so it's like really this idea of Gryffindor is just good and the inherent good of the world and the moral forwardness
Mm-hmm.
um that we have in the media, that we like take, and it goes, no, Gryffindors really are just the people who kind of have the ideas. They're the
Mm-hmm.
ideas. They're the people that are
Mm-hmm.
like, let's build a house. And
And
then
I
it
mean,
takes
the
everybody else.
world, okay, and the world still needs quarterbacks, okay? Like, we're not
Absolutely.
saying that, like,
Oh my
that's a
God.
bad thing. It's just that
No.
that's what it is, though.
It means that it wasn't just the Gryffindor who built the house. Just because
Yeah.
Gryffindor had the idea to do it doesn't mean that they just built the house. It is that like, oh, it takes a lot of work, and Gryffindors are great at being that front person. They're great at being the person who'd be like, actually, we need a round of waters, or we need more silverware. Like, they're that friend
Mm-hmm.
who's
Mm-hmm.
willing to speak for the whole group and the whole table when you have socially awkward people. um
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, that doesn't mean that like they're the only ones who can stand up for justice and good and change,
Yeah.
even though in the media we are told that they are, like
Yeah,
as far as
in the
the
books
book.
that in the books that's how it is.
So that really is how the books see all of these houses versus how fandom has warped them and changed them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, every person is individual, and so we'll see the houses in individual ways, um, especially like with the biasism of what they align with, because someone who is in Gryffindor might see Gryffindor very differently than someone who is in Slytherin.
Right. Well, because again, and this would be true in the books too, I think the characters would probably feel this way because they're only interacting with their house, really. So they're going to see the diversity within their house that exists, right? Like if you were actually attending Hogwarts, that's how you would feel. But since
Yeah,
you don't interact with the characters that are in the other houses, you would see those houses as whatever their stereotype is.
yeah.
Yep.
So I think this would be a good time to start talking about the like diving into the fact that J.K. Rowling didn't make the houses, we did,
Mm-hmm.
and the why. And we've kind of talked about the whys behind that, but the whys that is so important to the fandom.
Yeah.
um First and foremost, like, let's talk about what it did for like the capitalist side of all of this.
Yeah,
um
the turning Harry Potter into a brand, like for that side of it, right?
if you took out houses, what kind of merch would there be?
None.
Like, there isn't a lot of
Not
merch
really.
sold. um
Nobody wants like merch of specific characters, right? Like the only merch that really exists that's popular of specific characters is like replications of certain characters' wands,
yeah.
right? That's the only piece of merch I can think of that's like actually character related.
Well,
Almost
and
all
that
of the merch that actually sells is related to the houses.
And again, that's because, well, several factors there, right? Because merch with characters means movie faces, which means then anything that Warner Brothers gets has to be cut with them.
Well,
So
yeah.
like that's not direct to J.K. Rowling and the book publishing, right?
Hmm.
uh, which is an important factor to take into this. Secondly, side characters. All of these side characters, again, there are so many of them, and so many of them are blank slates. Thinking Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, Tonks, Seamus, not Diggory, Seamus and Dean
Yep.
Thomas. Yeah, all of these characters are very like fill in the blank Mad Lib style characters.
Yep.
So you can't have merch based off of these characters because the purpose of them is to be ambiguous. Nope, that's not the word.
Ambiguous. Yeah,
Thank you,
you got it.
ambiguous. For people to then feel that they are attached to them, so they can't do anything defined with that stuff. Also, there's too many characters to do that with every character.
Yep.
And then no one likes the trio except maybe Hermione.
Yeah. Yeah. I
um,
think if you read the books, then Ron is pretty likable. But if you watch the movies, Hermione's pretty likable, and then nobody likes Harry, no matter what. Sorry. Ah.
but with wands, right? There's a whole idea of you can collect them, you can have your favorites. They're art pieces, so they're not direct marketing merch, right? They're
Mhm.
like they can
Well, they're
be
very expensive.
they're very expensive.
Whether you get the official ones or fandom ones, because they just take a lot to produce.
They do.
Yeah.
So it is, so like that is the merch that exists that doesn't have to do. And then you have the Hogwarts crest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
uh you have some things from the book, so you have like a time turner or Hermione's dress or like Hedwig, a few memorabilia here and there. But really the majority of the merch sales within the Harry Potter universe is house items.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from pajama bottoms to socks to shirts to binders, notepads, hair clips, everything. Ties, uniforms, all of those are incredibly based on the house system.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that the world has to be about the houses
Yep.
because that's what the merch is dependent upon.
Yep. Yep.
Um, which is why I also think as we go later in the books, we also see that that's another reason why things don't change, is because she can't then start critiquing the house system, because then she might not make as many sales.
Well,
As
because
far
then
as
she'd be critiquing her fans by proxy. And all
yeah,
of this, by the way, a lot of this development happened during the long summer. So for those of you guys that were not in the fandom when it was like when the content was being developed, right? Like when the books were coming out, when the movies were coming out. Just to give some further context, this there was a point. I think it was in between book 3 and 4, or was it in between book 4 and 5?
four and
4
five.
and 5. Okay, so in between book 4 and 5, because normally the books had been releasing about every like 12 to 14 months before then, right? And then in between book 4 and 5, there was a couple of years before we got book 5. And due to that, we were making so much stuff, like so much stuff. Um, we were writing fanfic, fan art. We were, developing things in the universe more. Like the fandom was just exploding because there was no new content. So we were making it. And that's really when all of this stuff with the houses happened. And hey, Landon's
I
mom. Hey, Landon's mom. So that's when all of this stuff was happening, and we were kind of doing all of this. So there was this gap in content. So all of these things that we've talked about that exist in the books in an underdeveloped way, plus the couple of years gap in canon content, meant that if we were going to continue to be Harry Potter fans and participate in fandom and in transformative works, we had to pump out a ton of stuff. So that's when, to my recollection, when all of this stuff was happening.
Yeah, and not only did you have that, but you also had the fact that the first movie came out that
Mm-hmm.
year. So many people who hadn't been reading the books were suddenly invited to read the books.
Yep.
So you had, not only did like the fans that had been the fan base that had been steadily growing over the course of 4 years continued to grow. You had an explosion of new fans
Mm-hmm.
in
Yep.
that last year of the wait. I think it was a 2.5 year period between 4 and 5.
That sounds
So
right.
that last year, the Sorcerer's Stone movie came out, and the entire fandom exploded. So now you had um, more people engaging in it, and have consumed it to a rate that is faster, that has made more people obsessed, right? Because the faster you consume media, the more like you want, and the more you're left wanting. So if
Mm-hmm.
you've read all the books and you still have 9 months to go and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? You start
Mm-hmm.
creating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It happens in a lot of fandoms.
Yep.
So yeah, it is this explosion of uh, more content, more people, more things, internet becoming wildly more available. The fans were starting to grow up of different ages.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that like they were like the fan art was improving because people were older and were getting more practice.
Yep.
Uh, Writing was improving. The internet itself was changing. Fanfiction.com, I think, started existing around that year.
Yeah.
Not
Fanfiction.net. But yeah,
dot net.
yeah, yeah.
So like
But yeah,
the
like
hub.
it was crazy. It was crazy because like there was enough Harry Potter fan stuff to go around that there were there were like half a dozen different
Yeah,
dedicated Harry Potter fan fiction sites and drama between them. Like it
so
was
much drama.
insane.
Yeah, you could get kicked off if you were on two of them. Like there was a lot of
Yes.
drama happening. And then all of a sudden this big place, this big website, this .net came in and allowed an entire hub of not just Harry Potter fan fiction, but fan fiction from all fandoms.
Yeah.
And it exploded there. So
Mhm.
all of a sudden you didn't have to sneak around from fandom page to fandom page, or pick your favorites or anything like that. There was one universal place you could get your fan fiction.
Mhm.
Um, like, and even though Wattpad existed or LiveJournal existed at that point, like it was hard to search through. This was super easy. There was different ways of doing it. Like it really was like the renaissance of the Harry Potter fandom happened in this long summer.
Yeah, it was
Um,
like, and it was right before, it was like a couple of years before social media became a thing. So it was really like the heyday of Web 1.0.
yeah,
The best time of the internet, really, in total. Let's be real.
and this is also when I started. I didn't start engaging with online forum until after the fifth book, because I was still pretty young. I was 12 or 13 at this point. But did start engaging like with other things that were being created that weren't just fandom specific. So there was also encyclopedias about Harry Potter being published during these times. So it
Hmm.
was like they were like the unofficial encyclopedia of Harry Potter, and it was like predictions of what was going to happen in the next book, or just these things that were like unofficial publications that were happening. So like not only was it happening online, but there was also a market in the bookstores that was exploding as well.
Hmm.
So fandom just went crazy.
Yeah. Harry Potter fandom was like a wild thing.
So
Um,
then, yeah, and so then the first movie came out, which means merch sales even then skyrocketed because there was now more material and more people who were willing to buy merch.
hmm.
Really did have to keep the house system intact for this purpose.
Yeah. Yep, as weird as
Um,
it was, they couldn't make too many changes to it because people by the time this was happening, people were hella attached. So you really only had like the first four books that anything could have happened, and it didn't.
and recognizing that we were all also very young, so we weren't questioning it. Because I think that that's the other part, is that we look at what this did to the fandom, not just to capitalism. We were a bunch of geeky people who wanted to find fellow geeky people that were like-minded and feel like we belonged to something. And literally the house system did that for us.
Hmm.
Like,
It gave us all these nice, neat, fun labels
yeah,
and an easy way to hang out with people. And it was just, and the thing about the books, and we talked about this in the Sorcerer's Stone episode, a big part of the books is that the extraordinary is good. And
Mhm.
so, you know, the people that are looked down upon, the people that are abused, the people that are bullied, like, they're the good people. And everybody has felt that way at some point in their youth. So it was just this wonderful thing. The Harry Potter fandom was just this wonderful thing where we could all get together and feel like we belonged. And the houses gave us this wonderful tool to like make that happen.
Yeah, and it made us feel like there was content that we could create there and be supported by people.
Mhm.
Um, I also think it made friendships really easy because you're like, I'm a Hufflepuff. You're like, and someone else is like, I'm a Hufflepuff. You know that you assume that they have the same values as you
Mhm.
because of what Hufflepuff means,
Yeah.
because of what Slytherin means. You can assume that they feel somewhat similar or the same way as you.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a fascinating turn. It's a fascinating way of that we as a fandom made connection.
Mhm.
Um, and of course it was going to stick. Of course, being able to box teenagers in groups that they felt accepted and who they could truly be and labeled, because we as humans, as much as we hate labels, love labels. It was the perfect
Yeah.
recipe. It made sense. And then this like capitalism could feed off of that
Yep.
success.
Mhm.
But I also think what that did is it united the fandom in such a unique way. Because as a fandom, we had to come together and define this broken system of houses. And then we realized the power that we had to continue
Yep.
to define other things in the books.
Yep. And whenever this happened, YA just exploded with
Yes.
these other books that had like, you know, categorizations of people. But the problem
Divergent.
is a lot of those other books. Oh, sorry. Did you have something to
Oh,
say on that?
I was gonna list some like Divergent, Hunger
Oh
Games
yeah,
had
yeah.
end. Like
Mhm.
there's countless examples of YA of trying to split people into groups that never worked successfully
Right, and
after.
here's why it didn't work. Here's why it didn't work. So this is the magic of it. So you look into Harry Potter and you think like, oh, the houses is everything. That's how they're making money. That's how they're selling merch. Da 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 da. I need my book to do that, right? Like, or a publishing house is like, I want more books that we can do that with. Like, right? Like, I want our merch, empire on whatever categories, right? But the thing is that in all of those books, Hunger Games and Divergent, like the ones you just listed, the way that people are sectioned off, the groupings are integral to the story and the world. And in Harry Potter, they're not. And that's why fans can latch onto it in a way that they can't in those other books. Divergent, by the way, awful categorization system, and the except for the first book, they're really bad books. But anyways, it's a whole other thing. Um, but like. The other books that try to do this can't, and the reason that they can't is because they think that the most important thing in Harry Potter is the houses, but it's not. The
Yeah.
houses are like really don't do much except to tell you when you're looking at an evil character or
And
who is the main character.
you know what? I do not blame authors for this. I think this truly belongs to publishing houses.
Mm-hmm.
Because I truly believe that if we had originally gotten Veronica Roth's version of what the Divergent sections were, it would have been different because you can feel the marketability being edited into that,
You
right? They
think so?
wanted like the Candor house or the Divergent house, or not Divergent, or whatever, the
Mm-hmm.
Restless, or whatever the different houses or factions were.
Yeah.
Um, if it was left, if it, because of the success of Harry Potter, if it wasn't trying to be marketed that way, I don't think there would have been as much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is purely a publishing house problem, that they saw the success Harry Potter had with the houses and went, we need more like that, and then nothing has been able to recreate it because it wasn't under pressure like that
Mm-hmm.
from
Well,
maybe
because the
around.
houses the houses weren't really the important part, and I don't think anybody realized that until they kept trying to produce the same success over and over and never could.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
So that if you
and
want to make another Harry Potter, make a categorization system that fans will like that doesn't actually matter to your book. There you go. There's the formula. Oh, a
yes.
Kronk. Okay.
Oh,
We're trying
cool.
for baby.
Oh
I
my
assume
God,
that's why
that's just
Katie did that.
right.
We're going to see. Landon wants another baby, so we're trying.
Oh, we're trying for another child.
Hmm. And she just got a promotion, so this is a good time. And there she is. We got the chimes. Landon's pregnant again, y'all.
Brandon's pregnant. We love that for her. um, but yes, it's really this interesting like yeah, I think what I love most about the houses is that it really did, even though it's a separation tactic within the media, within the book, it's a way of separating students, it's a way of like ostracizing different houses from each other, of making sure that there isn't no inner house unity or anything like that. We as a fandom was like, yeah, fuck that. And never treated it that way.
Yeah, we were like, that's dumb. We're
And
not doing that.
we literally just used it as like a whatever, sort of like an identifier rather than a club.
Hmm.
um, it was like a pin just being like, yeah, I'm Slytherin, cool. Rather than I'm a Slytherin and no one can be friends with me unless you're Slytherin.
Yeah. Yeah, that was never the case. That was never the case. I mean, the only time that ever happened is like when the early fandom, Hufflepuff was the house nobody liked, right? And now Gryffindor's the house nobody likes. So I feel like there's always been like a house that people were like, whatever. I'm not whatever. But other than that, that's been the closest thing that we've ever had to like the houses being separated the way that they are in the books.
Yeah, exactly. And because of that, again, I think it brought together this like understanding, like it's almost also an entry level into fandom,
Yeah.
right?
It
It's
was for
like,
a lot of people, a lot of people's entry point, regardless of their age.
yeah, exactly. It's like this idea of understanding of what house do you belong to? It's a
Hmm.
universal question that you can ask any Harry Potter fan and then have an instant connection with, which
Yep.
makes the fandom feel as toxic and as gross and as unkind as it can be in some points in history and some points in corners of the fandom, even currently. Overall, it makes like this welcoming, easy way to just like talk and make connection,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is a really cool way for us to all feel interconnected so that we could truly see the power that the fandom has, because the fandom is so unique in the amount of power that it holds.
Well, it's like it's one of the biggest fandoms that at least I've ever been a part of, and every other big fandom I've been a part of has been like more toxic and more ridiculous. You know what I mean? At least in my experience, right? Which I find very interesting. Katie, it's a kid's toy. It's just a kid's toy. It's not really a severed bunny head.
Oh, I love the idea that there is a severed bunny child
It's
to
just a
play
kid's
with.
toy.
Just saying.
um, but yeah, if I think about like all the other fandoms that I've been a part of and had experience in, um, as far as like large fandoms go, Harry Potter, I've probably experienced the least amount of awfulness. And
Mhm.
I don't know if that's just because it's a very old fandom, it's been around a long time, and so a lot of us that are in the Harry Potter fandom are much older now, or if the internet was just such a different place back then, probably all of those things. But yeah, I do still love the Harry Potter fandom a lot.
I also think it has certainly had its war, like shipping, like we will talk about shipping wars.
Oh God.
Because there are certainly shipping war examples in the Harry Potter fandom that have
Mm-hmm.
gotten pretty nasty.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, it doesn't necessarily like overall really kind
Mm-hmm.
and really many different levels and many different places of entry.
Yeah.
But automatically, like suddenly being brought into a house makes you feel like included, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I think, unpopular opinion, the Pottermore test I really appreciated. recognizing that I also got Slytherin 13 out of the 14 times I took it. So I felt valid in my choices. I did really appreciate that because I think it gave everyone a access point to sit there and be like, oh, you don't know? Let's figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For those of you that didn't get your house on Pottermore, Pottermore's trash. That's what I'll say about that. But if you did get your house, then Pottermore's wonderful, right? Like that's the deal there.
That is the deal there. Although the wand thing, pretty cool because I was not sold on like what kind of wand I had.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, cool, this is awesome.
I will actually say if Pottermore was just those quizzes and really nothing else as far as content was, then I wouldn't hate it so much. You
Yes.
know, if it was just those quizzes, I would think Pottermore's a fun little website.
Oh yeah, that's the only thing I'm referring to. I've read nothing
Yeah.
else. That's not true. I've read a lot. I refuse to believe anything else.
Yeah, I
I
read it and then get immediately upset.
Another shot for all of those playing the drinking game at home. Pottermore sucks because it's just an excuse for J.K. Rowling to uh, editorialize
Continue to
canon,
milk the only good thing she's ever written.
and also it explains that Cursed Child is canon, which is the stupidest fucking thing I have ever heard.
I hate Cursed
Oh
Child.
my god, do we have to read that for this series?
Yeah, we do. We have to read Cursed Child and talk about how awful it is.
Oh no.
Sorry.
It's fine. Landon's gonna lose her mind. It'll be good. Anyway, um, sorry, just had to think. Yes, Katie, that's where you're told what your house is.
Yep. Yep.
So
Among other things.
yeah, and again, it's like it's because the fandom opened up the definitions of each house and also accepted that there are multiple layers and complexities, that's a word, I'm going with it, of human beings, that you can be multiple things at multiple points in time and that maybe one house doesn't speak to you and that's valid. Like the fact that the fandom opened that up, I think really also added to the relatability to people who didn't necessarily relate to any of the houses.
Mm-hmm.
And also expanding upon those houses and just being like, yeah, no, Slytherin's not just the evil assholes. They're also the people who are like really good at parties.
Why not, right? The fandom did that to make it more balanced.
Yeah, they're the ones that were really my favorite. My favorite has always been the Tumblr things that have like defined the aesthetic of each house.
Oh
And
yeah.
like it being like Slytherin house is really pointed wing eyeliner, and I'm like, yes, that is the aesthetic I wish I had.
I'm here for that. I like that.
I loved it. I was like, it's not even describing the personalities of each house. It's describing the hypothetical aesthetics that I truly find beautiful. And that is the kind of fandom I want.
But see, that's what the houses are really, and the way that fandom has actually treated them is aesthetic, right? They're not meaningful in the way that they are in the first book. They really are just like, what Harry Potter aesthetic are you as part of the Harry Potter fandom? And I think that it's easy to assign aesthetics to Harry Potter houses and less easy to assign actual personality traits as what, the way that they're portrayed in the book because of thank you so much for the follow, awkward rainbow soul. I am also an awkward rainbow soul. Thank you. Landon, I think you are too, right? I think we can all be awkward rainbow souls.
I'm perfectly not awkward.
Okay. Anyways, I love you. Yeah, the child grew up. The child grew up, Katie. So I think when I think of hang on. Lady wants up. Here we go. You can lay right here, lady. So when I think of like the Harry Potter houses, it really is an aesthetic, and I think that that's so easy in the books because there's all of these characters that are just side characters with tiny like bit of their personality that the fandom can expand on, because these side characters, they're really all just an aesthetic, right? And there's a plethora of them. There's so many in the books, and there's so many characters that all we know about them is like one or two personality traits, and sometimes we know their house, right? And it's so fun for the ones that we don't to assign a house to them. Like, I love that. Me and my Marauders era, oh, what house would like Ludo Bagman be? What house would Alistair Moody be? You know what I mean? Like I love that. What house would what's another one? What's that? What's like some of the girl? Yeah. Yeah, like what
Well,
house
he's
would they
so
be?
obviously Slytherin.
Yeah, but some of them aren't so obvious, right? Like the ones that are part of that
No,
are part of the Order of the Phoenix are not so obvious, right? So like assigning houses to all the Order of the Phoenix members. Things like that I find so fun. And because the characters are not well developed, right? And the house system is kind of broken, I'm able to do that. So it's a kind of a blessing that J.K. Rowling was less talented than she could have been in writing these things.
there are some things, because I also think that if she had the bigoted perspective and had put that into the writing at this point in time, we wouldn't have fallen in love with this book series as much.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not.
So, yeah, I think that
Yeah.
that's what makes it beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is. So like I think for the fandom, the way that we've really landed on like Harry Potter houses as an aesthetic more than anything else, um, I think is like, that's super valid, and as far as fandom is concerned, they really shouldn't be anything else. There's really nothing else that the houses can easily serve. I'm in Ravenclaw, Aqua Rainbow Soul. What house are you in? And don't worry about interrupting. We do this on Twitch knowing we're gonna get interruptions. We welcome them. We're happy to be interrupted by our viewers.
We appreciate it even more.
Mm-hmm. We do. So interrupt away. Interrupt away. But yeah, so for those of y'all that don't know, Landon and I met in a Marauders era Harry Potter role play. So we met, and our one of our early bonding experiences was sorting Harry Potter characters into houses who never got houses. Low key, not sure. I feel like a mix of Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. Well, Mochi, this is what I do if you're not sure. If you feel like a pull between multiple houses, which house do you think you would have felt the most pull to when you were 11? That's probably your house, right? Because that's when you're sorted.
Or flip a
That's
coin.
what I would say.
No, and I think I love doing it with everybody though. I love giving, like, it's a fun sorting system for me to sit there
Mm-hmm.
and be like, oh yeah, that character, obvious Slytherin. Aaron Burr,
Mm-hmm.
Slytherin. Alexander Hamilton, Slytherin. George Washington, Gryffindor. Eliza. No, see, I could do this with the entire Hamilton cast because I love doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That is
And there's so much Harry Potter there's so much Harry Potter like fan art and crossover fanfics and things like that that are clearly just a vehicle to sort your favorite insert other fandom character into Harry Potter houses, right?
Yeah. No, it really it's fun. It's my favorite
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yeah. What house is this? Oh, the game. Yeah, so we play Sims too. So during some of our streams that are more like kind of fandom topics or roleplay topics or things like that, we're playing through a Sims 2 Legacy right now. We're on the first generation though, so you're seeing it early.
You can start with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep.
I know it's a little early, but I feel that we've wrapped up this conversation pretty well.
I think we have two. I think we have two. Oh, Awkward Rainbow Soul's a Slytherin. Wonderful. Most of my friends are Slytherin. And if they're not Slytherin, they're Ravenclaw.
I'm just gonna keep saying it because if I didn't say it, I wouldn't be a Slytherin.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. Oh, Malcolm's going to tuck in his kid. Okay,
So
go back to
sweet.
sleep. Okay, let me get Malcolm in bed, and then I think we will wrap up stream. Because I think you're right. I think we've said what we want to say. Uh-oh,
Right.
Malcolm, stop glitching out. Come here.
Bam, bam.
And we did make a lot of progress in our legacy. So just to kind of recap on that, where's his job? So Malcolm has his dream career now. He's in athletics and he's a level 3. Landon is also a level 3 in her career. And Tormund is a child now. He's a toddler. He's moving along, and Landon's pregnant with her second one. If it's a girl, it's going to be named Lily. So Bree gave us that name, and if it's a boy, it's going to be named. Let's see, we just got a new name
Kronk.
in here. Oh yeah, Katie says Kronk. So if it's a boy, it's going to be named Kronk. If it's a girl, it's going to be named Lily.
Both of which have been my favorite ships, or some of my favorite ships that I've shipped with. Lily's for my James Potter, and
Hmm.
Kronk for, oh my God, who did I ship Kronk with?
In our Disney role play,
Yeah,
who was Kronk shipped with? Because we didn't have an
Meg.
Yzma.
Was it Meg? It
Yeah,
was
that
Meg.
was right. It was Kronk and Meg.
It was
And so
Kronk
we've had Disney role plays too, by the way, a couple of them.
and
And yeah, Kronk from Emperor's New Groove, and then Meg from Hercules was a ship in
yeah.
one of them.
Which, if you think hard about it, good ship. Just saying.
It is. It is. It was a very good ship. Okay, we're gonna save this. Save and
Disney. All
exit. Yeah,
right.
our Disney RPs were fun.
The article I have is good news, but it's not on the Good News Network.
Okay,
And it's a little political,
that's
but
okay.
felt it was necessary because it's still June.
Mm-hmm.
About Harry Potter, so obviously turf is involved.
Yep.
So this is good news that people might have heard that happened this week. But Title IX, which here in the United States is an amendment that basically says that education can't be, you can't discriminate against gender or race and sexuality for education purposes. It also was upheld that it can't be discriminated against transgender students either.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So, if there is discrimination within the school system now, if it's brought against judges or there's a lawsuit or anything like that, Title IX does protect them. And it means that schools have to take into consideration transgender youth when writing their policies.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Amazing, because it
I
just,
love this.
this had been introduced, or at least started, in the Obama era. Trump rolled it back, and so Biden has brought it back, but has brought it back stronger.
Oh, I love
So
that.
it's really, really good news for students, for transgender youth here in America. Obviously, it's going to be an uphill battle, but it's amazing that we have constitutional stuff on our side for this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that,
I love this. On one hand, I'm like, oh, I hate that it's come to this because this is really such a non-issue. Like, all of these bigots have made like trans youth this big issue that like it never was. All of these problems are just purely invented. Like, where's the trans kid that's like winning all of these sports contests? I've never met them. Like it doesn't. Where's these issues of like kids that are trans sneaking into the wrong bathroom? Like that's just not, these things are invented issues. The fact that we have to legislate it is sad, but the fact that the legislation is moving in that direction in favor of our transgendered youth is good. Like when you're a kid, you should be free to play with things like your gender and sexuality and not have to worry about it. Like that's what that time is for, is finding yourself, finding your gender, just like your Harry Potter house, right? Only a little bit more important.
is it though? Does it have to be?
I don't know. I mean, for us, well.
But no, basically, but what this does is it means that if there is a student who is assigned female at birth and wants to get dressed in the male's locker room at 5th grade, he can. It
Yeah.
means that like respecting pronouns has to be taken into consideration. Like these are all, it is, unfortunately, you're right, invented problems, but it does protect, it does make it so that we actively have to think of students of these
Identities of these
we have
identities.
to think of transgender students. So the
Mhm.
same way that
Mhm.
we have to think of disabled students, right?
Mhm.
That before Title IX protected disabilities, there didn't have to be wheelchair ramps. There didn't have to be elevators in school. And now there
Yeah.
has to be. So now there has to be gender neutral bathroom. Like not necessarily, like schools get to determine how that is, but this is building to a place that there might have to be gender neutral bathrooms available to students.
I mean, there
Um,
really should be. The whole like
which
it's really silly that there's not.
Yeah, which I am so incredibly thankful that my school is where I'm at, that we went completely gender neutral with all our bathrooms because of COVID, and our principal isn't changing it back, which is awesome.
Yeah, like
So it
why? If you found a way to make it work, just keep the gender neutral bathrooms and then you don't even have to worry about it.
and they're like individual bathrooms anyway. Like it's not
Yeah.
like, so it is perfectly aligned with that. And no, so this is a big win. This is big news in the transgender community and the queer community. It's awesome that it happened during June. It's amazing that like that we're able to talk about it, especially because J.K. Rowling has such ties to being a turf, that we get to sit there and be like, well, fuck you, JKR. We're taking
Yeah.
care of our trans youth one step at a time.
God, I hope she doesn't comment on this. I really don't know want to know what she thinks about this.
I doubt she will, because it's American politics. She usually sticks to European politics.
Yep, true. Okay, well, this was wonderful. I loved this. Thank you so much for sharing it, even though it wasn't on our normal website that we go to.
Well,
This
I
was
was
still
like,
very good
a
news
little
and
bit more
fitting
serious
for the
than normal,
topic.
but I hope people are okay with that.
Yeah, well, you know what? You know what, Landon? It's Pride, and during Pride, the gays can do whatever they want to do. So that
Actually,
means
yeah, it's
yeah, so that means like everybody will just have to deal with it being a little bit more serious this time if they didn't like it. So, that's the rules of June.
that's it. Yeah, if you hear it, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. If you're queer, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Laws don't matter. It's homophobic
That's
to
right.
it's
That's right.
homophobic
Be gay, do
laws
crimes
will be held up
in
against
June.
people in June. As soon as it's July, they'll go back to hating us, but in June, we're allowed to do whatever we
Well,
want.
you'll know because all of a sudden all the brands on Twitter will go back to their regular logo instead of their rainbow one, and then that's how that
Like,
works.
right, you're donating money for me not to ever get married. Forgot about that for 1 month. Now we're back to it.
I'm sorry, I have to pet this kitty cat. Oreo's very politely asking for pets, so I have to pet this kitty cat for a
So
second.
cute.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, that's been our episode. Landon, where can everybody find you? What would you like to plug today?
You can find me on Instagram at Land in Maine.
Hmm.
There's a new tattoo on there. So if you
It's
want to
really
go,
cool.
very pretty. If you and you can also find me on TikTok at Landon Reverie. I do tarot pullings. So if you want your tarot cards read, hit me up.
We need to make a command for your socials. Remind me to do that at some point this week before our next stream, so that we can
Will
do like an exclamation Landon socials or something.
But now we can do, is it that or is it the
No,
other
it's
way?
it's exclamation Landon. You almost got it. There you go.
Sorry.
All right. All right, where can you find me? Well, first off, here's all my socials. I do things the same way every other content creator does them. You guys know how this works, right? My shows, I have 3 shows. 2 of them are here on Twitch. We do Interstage Window on Saturdays, which is me, and almost always Landon is here too. It's our conversation show. We have community days sometime. Next week, we're going to be doing a role play topic. We're going to be talking about role play group applications. So, we're going to be talking about different types of applications you might want to use, and also what our tips are on accepting and denying and going through applications and all of that kind of process, right? I also stream on Thursdays. That one's at 6:30. All these times are Eastern, by the way. And we're playing some more Final Fantasy X. We're in the end game of that game. We're doing side quests right now. So if you'd like to see something kind of like after the main plot, we haven't quite finished the main plot, but we've done most of it, right? So that's where we are in that game, and that's what we're going to be playing more of on Thursday. Also, every other Wednesday, I have episodes of Spare Room that go up on my YouTube channel. That's my role play help show. That's scripted. So if you like more scripted, more put together content, that's that show. All right. Let's find something to
Last
read.
announcement is
Oh, yeah.
July 5th. Do I have the right date? I don't. July 3rd. July 3rd, we are doing Shadow and Bone, the TV show,
Yes.
uh, for our media episode. So make sure to, if you want to like have the ins and outs and opinions during the media episode, make sure to binge watch that entire show. We'll be here to dissect what we thought of it and if it resonates with us or not.
Yeah, it's very good. I've watched it before. I'm doing my rewatch now to put like my more intelligent thoughts together. My unintelligent first watch thoughts were I really liked it. So if you want to hear more, than just that, show up to that episode and watch it with us beforehand. That's what we're both doing right now. All right. Anything else before I find someone to raid?
I think that's it.
Okay. All right, guys. So y'all saw, if y'all have looked at the channel point redeems, you'll notice that Guide the Raid is off. That is because I already know who we were going to raid when we started today. We're going to raid my friend Jedlim because he is doing a fundraiser right now for Field Coast Cats. And it's a kitty cat charity in the UK, and y'all know I love kitty cats. We've got Oreo right here. We've got Lady Vox right here, just off screen. And I also have my kitty cat Queen and my roommate's cat Ash. So we love kitty cats in this house, and so any kitty cat charity I'm going to be very interested in. So that's who we're going to raid today. So I'm just going to pop that in.
Perfect.
He has a sponsorship for this, by the way, with this Vikings game called Vikings War of Clans. If you download it and play the demo only takes you like 2 minutes. It's like a little tutorial for the game, literally 2 minutes, and that helps raise money for the charity. So you can do that on mobile or on your PC. So I would highly recommend you do that because it does not take long. I did it this morning, literally finished the whole thing in like 2 minutes. All right, here we go. Let's go raid Jed. All right, here we go. Boom. Bye, guys. Have fun.
Don't forget to be awesome.
And
Woo!
don't forget to make it a great day.